Hello and welcome in, everybody. I'm going to apologize right off the bat. I have a bit of a head cold, so my voice is kind of funky today. Uh, it is what it is. Unfortunately, spring bugs, I'm really susceptible to them, so it is what it is. But just so you guys know, that's why my voice sounds weird. But we're going to start this off by talking about this particular character. And this is one of my original characters. Her name is Rosalie, and she is essentially a butterfly person. And I personally really like her design. She's one of the designs I did right outside of college that I really took to. And I think they're some of my more fun character designs are these, is this particular race of people that I built for my comic, and her design is by far my favorite of all of them. So it was kind of exciting to finally get to do a fully rendered finished piece with her. And now we're coming up against the piece. And this piece itself, from the time that I am recording this on March 23rd, it is exactly 1 year since I did the initial sketch for the piece. This piece, I started on a day that I was having a really, really bad art day. Like, nothing was coming out right. I was having trouble on stream, and just nothing was turning out. But at the very end of the night, I ended up doing this sketch. And I really liked how her face looked. I liked how the hair looked. So I decided, you know what? I finally got something viable out of my sketching today, so I'm going to try and finish it up. And I have been working on it on and off for the past year, because this is one of currently 35 projects that I have in my queue of things that I'm trying to get completed, because I am a fool who cannot leave well enough alone. So, anyway, but yeah, I worked on it on and off for a good portion of last year, and then I kind of set it aside for 6 months and didn't touch it. And in that time, I just kind of let it sit and fester until about mid-January. I pulled it up and decided, you know what? I'm gonna finish this. This isn't the worst sketch I've ever done. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. And I think it would be a fun piece to finish. So I finally did start working back on it. And the whole reason I decided I really wanted to finish it was because I really, really liked how her face and her hair came out in the piece. Her body, there are some anatomical issues with it, and I'm not particularly fond of that, but I don't think that they were bad enough for me to not finish the piece. So we've got that. But, anyway, she in particular is one of many pieces that I have in my queue, and that I've had for a year or 2 years or 5 years. Sometimes I take a really long time to finish pieces. So, in all honesty, I did at a few points in the year wonder if I should scrap this piece. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you guys the processes and the questions I ask myself when I am looking at a piece that is sitting in my queue, and whether or not I should just scrap it for good or keep it and finish it. So the first question I ask myself is, how finished is the piece? When I pulled this back up in mid-January, the line art was done for it, the base colors were done for it, I had already color picked out the highlights and shadows, so it was almost the only thing I had left to do on it was the final render. And so for me personally, this piece was one of those pieces that I decided, you know what, I am this close to being done with it, let's continue. Number 2, is there something that either I really, really like or something I really, really dislike about this piece? And while I don't particularly care for the anatomy, especially of her body and the way her shoulders sit because it doesn't work right with her head, I still absolutely love the way I drew her face, and I love the way I drew the hair. And I liked those so much that I figured it was worth continuing to do the piece. Now, question number 3 I ask is, how motivated am I to finish this piece? And this is an important question, and this was the one question that I asked myself with this particular piece that I was like, I don't know. I wasn't particularly motivated to finish it in January, but there were still more positives than negatives in my questions that I decided to continue it anyway. Now, number 4. The question I ask is, does this piece serve a larger purpose? Sometimes your pieces can be, for this one in particular, this piece is fantastic for me because now I have finished work of this character in color. Like, I have never actually done a full rendered piece of her. I've had this character since like 2010, and I never actually colored her. So it's really nice to have a colored portrait of this character so that, in the future when I'm drawing her for the comic, I have reference to her colors, and I have reference to how I want her drawn. So this piece, for me, does serve a larger purpose. Question number 5. Do I think I will be happy with the end result of this piece? And for this one, when I looked at the finished sketch and line art and base cut flats, I looked at it and I said, I bet you if I fully render this, I will still be pretty happy with the results. And I was correct. I think it turned out really nice in the end. So, I don't know. It turned out really nice for me. And then number 6, and probably the most important question, especially if you have pieces spanning over a year in terms of, how long it takes for you to finish them. Am I willing to let the flaws stay, or am I going to fuss over them? For this piece in particular, I've seriously considered fixing her bottom half so that it fit her face better. But in the end, I decided I was willing to let those flaws stand in order to get this piece finished and have something of her for me to share with everybody. So personally, this piece was one that I was willing to let the flaws stand. Now, if you're doing more complicated pieces, because this is a simple portrait, if you're doing more complicated pieces with backgrounds and stuff like that, and as you grow as an artist, those things will change in how you know how to address them and stuff like that. Sometimes those things can be huge differences, and they're going to be things that you're going to spend a lot of time fussing over. And depending on the piece itself, is it worth it to fuss over it, or is it worth it to scrap it and maybe try a different composition or something new with that particular piece? So for this one, as I said, I didn't have to worry too much. I didn't fuss with the original line art. I didn't fuss with the anatomy as much as I would have liked to. I didn't. And I'm still fairly happy with how this piece turned out. So I think that's pretty good for me. Now, like I said before, I have 35 projects sitting unfinished, and that's just my projects that are digital. I don't even count my traditional pieces because that's a hot mess. So we don't talk about my traditional pieces. But what I do in order to try and cool myself down, because I have all of my works in progress sitting on my desktop so that I know what I have available to work on. Now, about every 3 months or so, I will go through and pick through the pieces and look and ask those questions to myself on whether or not these are pieces that I should scrap. And I probably don't scrap as many pieces as I probably should at this point, but I have scrapped them, and I've gotten them out of my project list so that I can work on pieces that I am more inspired to do. Now, I will say I have a caveat. I have a folder also on my desktop specifically for my scrapped pieces. And I know that's a little bit of a cop-out because, again, I can't leave well enough alone. But say if, for some ungodly reason I'm actually caught up with all of the projects I have going on. I've yet to see this happen, but, we can wish, we can hope, we can dream. But for days where I'm having like a really rough art day where I'm just not motivated to work on the pieces that I have currently sitting in my queue, I can go through my old scraps folder and look to see if there are maybe some ideas that I really liked from the pieces that I've scrapped and try and rework them. And sometimes that can help me get out of things like art block, that can help me refresh ideas, maybe incorporate the ideas that I really liked from those old pieces into the pieces that I am currently working on. It serves many purposes for me, and for me personally, it really does help me in terms of my workflow and getting stuff done. So that's my personal opinion on it, and I hope that maybe this will help anybody who is having issues trying to determine whether or not they should continue working on things. Because as I said, I've had pieces that literally took me 4 years to complete. So I totally understand not wanting to get rid of a piece that, like, hey, I really like this one aspect of it. But there are times where I think it is appropriate to just say, nope, I can't do this anymore. So that is the advice that I have for all of y'all today. If you want to follow me elsewhere, I have Instagram and Twitter and the TikTok and stuff like that. My username is punkydumplin on all of those. If you want to go give me a follow, I will link them down below in the description. I am also selling on Etsy, so if you would like to support me by buying some of my artwork or stickers or things like that, my Etsy link is also down in the links below. And if you like listening to me ramble on about shit that does not matter to anybody but me, you can absolutely like this video, subscribe, comment, do what you are going to do. And just so you know, if you guys want to talk to me in real time, I do stream on Twitch on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, generally at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, I am going to head out. I hope you guys enjoyed this piece. Y'all have a great day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye!